Back to federal politics now, and joining me is the Shadow Minister for Employment, but also now the Shadow Attorney-General Michaelia Cash. Thanks, and we'll talk about the reshuffle in a moment because you're taking on those new shadow responsibilities. But you're from WA.
I am from WA.
And we're seeing quite the spat today between Premier McGowan, and your colleague Andrew Hastie. Andrew Hastie really gave him both barrels. Did it warrant such a strong response from your colleague?
Yes, it did, because, Kieran, I think the only person that Mr McGowan demeaned in making those comments were himself. For the Premier of Western Australia to go overseas and, as part of a luncheon where he's meant to be promoting the benefits of Western Australia, to actively disparage another elected representative from his home state of Western Australia, I think reflects very poorly on him. And let's look at Andrew Hastie. He is an outstanding Shadow Defence Minister, but more than that, he is someone who has always put Australia's best interests first. He is a former member of the SAS. He is someone in our country that has put his own life on the line to ensure that he defends the principles that we live by each and every day. So if Mr McGowan thinks that this is the way you actually actively promote Western Australia on the international stage, I respectfully say he's wrong.
Well, he said that he'd taken Cold War pills at birth and hasn't got it out of his system, that Cold War mentality. In response on this program, Andrew Hastie said that Mark McGowan lacks the intellectual depth to deal with these issues.
Well, what it shows is
certainly
Mr McGowan doesn't understand what the federal government in particular is responsible for. And I'm assuming that one of his advisors has this afternoon just quietly gone to him and said, Mark, here's a copy of Penny Wong's address to the Press Club. Because when you read Penny Wong's address to the Press Club, she herself acknowledges that Australia must always stand up for and defend its own principles. You know, I am very happy that there are talks between Australia and China. But at the same time, the federal government must always put the security of its nation and its people first.
But Mr McGowan this afternoon says this is part of the spokesperson from his office. I just want to put this to you because you were part of the former government. He says that it's widely acknowledged that the former Liberal government damaged our economic relationship with our biggest trading partner, and the state government is committed to strengthening the relationship to benefit the WA economy. He says, the spokesperson for Mr McGowan, Mr Hastie's comments about potential armed conflict with China were irresponsible, immature and dangerous. Australians don't want or need inflammatory commentary like that. So he's doubling down.
He is, and again I would say quite wrongly. Mr Hastie's comments reflect very much the position that Penny Wong set out in her speech to the National Press Club. The actions that we took when we were in government were in response to actions taken by China against us. And former Prime Minister Scott Morrison, he made it very clear he would always stand up for Australian values and Australian principles. But again, as I said, I am very pleased, and I know Andrew is very pleased, that there are talks between Australia and China. And in particular, I acknowledge the strong trading relationship that Western Australia has. But again, if Mr McGowan, as the Premier of my state, thinks that the best way to promote Western Australia is to actively disparage another elected official, I respectfully say he is wrong.
You've got, well, let's get to some other issues. The reshuffle this week, Mr Dutton's gone from having someone like Julian Leeser, who was actively engaged in the voice process and very constructive, to now Jacinta Price, who, Senator Nampijinpa Price, who is a clear advocate of the No campaign. He's really flipped on that issue in one fell swoop.
Well, I'd say that Senator Jacinta Nampijinpa Price, along with Senator Kerryn Little from South Australia, they are outstanding appointments to our front bench. And in particular, Senator Nampijinpa Price, she has lived and breathed from the day that she was born Indigenous issues. I actually worked very closely with her mother, Best price when Bess was the Minister for Women in the Northern Territory. And again, the one thing Bess always did was advocate for the people on the ground. And that is what Jacinta Nampijinpa Price has done her entire life, including when she was the Deputy Mayor in Alice Springs. She is someone who listens to the voices on the ground. She is someone who openly says, I believe in equality of citizenship, and that is not what is proposed by Mr Albanese. She is someone who understands, Kieran, another layer of bureaucracy in Canberra? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? There's enough bureaucracy for all of us, but another layer of bureaucracy will not solve the problems that the people in Alice Springs are currently screaming out for solutions for. They will not solve, or it will not solve, the problems on the ground in Laverton and Leonora, in my home state of Western Australia, as a result of the abolition of the cashless debit card. So Jacinta Nampijinpa Price, she is giving a voice to those who believe in equality of citizenship and understand Mr Albanese's Canberra-based bureaucracy will do nothing for the people on the ground.
But before you go, on that CDC, the cashless debit card, which was made voluntary last year, Minister Amanda Rishworth announced today that there are more funds going to East Kimberley, that there were earlier in the week more funds going to Ceduna to help in this period to try and with economic jobs and economic growth and so on in those areas. Do you welcome that contribution in those areas where the CDC has now been made voluntary?
They're now cleaning up a mess that they created. They should never have abolished the CDC in the first place. And after they did, they should have listened to the voices on the ground in Ceduna, in Laverton, in Leonora, and responded immediately. The paltry amount of money, 4.45 million, does not even go to the shires. Do you know what the shire presidents have been told? You need to apply for funding as part of the budget process. So no, Kieran, this is just Labor cleaning up a mess that their own policy failure has created.
Michaelia Cash, thanks for your time.
Great to be with you.